Hello, everyone. My name's Patrick. Welcome to the latest episode of Undeterred. And I have to apologize. We've had kind of a turbulent couple of weeks in the party. We had state party elections. We had a couple fundraisers. I went on vacation, so I'm a little apologetic that we haven't had a weekly sequential episode. But nonetheless, here we are. So today I'm really excited to have our two-term chair, Adam Goldwyn, just got reelected. Welcome, Adam. And we have our first term vice chair, Heather Tyulyandin.
Tyulyandin.
I'm sorry.
It's okay.
I'm honest about it, at least anyway, right?
Yeah.
So Adam, Heather, I'm Patrick. Hey, I got elected for state party treasurer again. This is, I guess, my second term. And I begged and begged and begged my good friend, Carrie Brecker, who is our second term secretary, to come on this, but Carrie just really likes being behind the scenes and making everything work. It's our kids' last week of school, and I'm sure Adam, Heather, Carrie, and myself have a barrage of orchestra concerts and softball starting and summer soccer starting, and Carrie's got a couple kids, so she wasn't able to make it today. But anyway, welcome. I feel really good about this leadership team. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I'm also very excited. It's great, of course. I was very excited to be reelected. I'm very, we face a transitional moment in our country. We're heading into some times that might be scary and challenging. There's also, however, a lot of opportunity and a lot of places to find hope. So I'm very glad to be here again, and glad to have Pat and Carrie bringing those years of experience that they have with them. And also, of course, it's great to see new faces, new leaders emerging, especially from this rising generation, because this Republican Party led by 80-year-old Donald Trump, they don't care about the future. They have no future. They just want to slash and burn and take everything they can on their way out the door. So it's really exciting to see young leaders like Heather, really for whom we're doing all this, right? All this is for the future.
Yeah, I mean, I have to echo a lot of what Adam said. I'm glad that we have some returning leadership who kind of know the ropes and know what's going on, so that we're not all scrambling to get our foot under us. But I also am really excited to be in a position to sort of represent that younger voice. I think we have an issue, not just in North Dakota, but across the nation, with trying to re-engage young voters. And that's always been the demographic that's been the hardest to turn out. So I'm hoping that being a young person myself will help them feel more included and like they can come to me with questions because we're peers.
Well, Heather, I'll tell you, I got to call you out now. This is the second call we've been on this week. We leadership, if you guys don't know, which you probably don't, has a Tuesday afternoon call, and Heather was called out on being the future leaders of the Dem-NPL, and I really like that because I was just thinking here, you guys, this is my seventh and eighth years as leadership, and I still feel like I'm a kid. So I don't know. I guess we're young. I feel really good about it. Oh, so Heather, before I transition to me, of course, how do you feel about that, about being the future generational up and coming? Is that exciting? Is that a lot?
Well, I think there's a little bit of pressure involved in that, knowing that everybody has such high hopes and high expectations. You think about a lot of the other younger Democrats. I mean, AOC is still relatively young. You have Hakeem Jeffries, who's younger, and then you have even younger than that. We have one of our new vice chairs, Malcolm Kenyatta. We have our vice chair, David Hogg. There's a lot of these young people who a lot of people are kind of putting the shoulder of the Democratic Party on and saying, how can we pass the mantle? How can we give it to you guys and let you guys sort of take the reins? So there is a little bit of nuance that's needed. But I also think it's important to have our voices be heard and represented, because we're shifting into a dynamic where, I was 11 when the iPod Touch came out. And so I've lived my whole life basically with technology. And now we're seeing Gen Alpha, who has never known a moment without a smartphone in their life. And so we need to take those things into account and sort of look at how could we move things differently so that they are reaching a broader audience in a world where short form content like Reels and TikToks are the main way that people get their information in my age bracket.
And I would also like to just really, really stress, I am only 43. Ah, for all of it is great that we've brought in Heather and her youth, but I'm healthy. I still got most of my hair, so
Well, you got that
I'm
going
not
for you.
kicking off
Yeah.
anytime soon.
41 here, chipping in. And Heather, something that I wanted to ask about that you said that really intrigued me. You said that this new generation is Generation Alpha or Gen A.
Yep.
I was positive that Forrest Gump was Gen A. Sorry,
Yeah.
that's it there, you guys. I couldn't help it. Well, I'll tell you, I'm really excited to be a part of this leadership team. To be really honest with you guys, I was thinking about not running so I could put a stagger in leadership. But quite frankly, I just have so much fun. It's a good team. It's great to be a part of it. And I think we have a tremendous amount of enthusiasm and momentum. We have a couple dollars in the bank as a party, which isn't a bad thing. A lot of state parties are really in the red some months. We have an amazing leadership team. Carrie and myself are going on, 6, 8 years. Adam's on his second term. Heather, you're a candidate. Carrie's been a candidate. I've been state candidates. We have an amazing Bismarck Mandan Dems organization. We got a good organization in Fargo. We have a really fired up donor base and a fired up, supporting base. We're getting record turnouts at events. So there's a lot of really great things going on. And of course, I would be amiss if I didn't mention Cheryl Biller, who's on our second cycle as ED. Laura Dronin's been, I'll just say, here forever. Laura's been a part of the team as an employee, our comms director for, I don't even know, 5-10 years. So there's a lot of good things going on. Bismarck Mandan already has a couple candidates for 2026 who have announced, and we've been being asked about people wanting to run for statewide elections. So we're going into this one hard. We got a lot of good momentum. So I'm really pumped about this cycle. And the GOP in North Dakota gave us plenty of ammunition this last cycle. And of course, the Trump shenanigans are only yet to continue. So you guys have any hopes or dreams, any goals personally or professionally for the Dem-NPL this cycle? You guys got things you want to check off the list in these next 2 years already?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things that I wanted to really focus on is, again, that youth representation. So myself and Sarah Grossbauer from Grand Forks, she's also her region rep and was a candidate last year too. We're going to be focusing a lot on building up our college Democrat base. Right now, NDSU in Fargo is the only local chapter and really the only state chapter. So it's just trying to see, can we expand that elsewhere? Can we expand it to high school juniors and seniors who might be interested in being involved when they go to school? And making sure that we're getting people prepared to vote, that we're figuring out how do we reach them best? What kind of platforms are they using for their information? What's the best way to disseminate what we're doing to them? And then also, how do we bring them into the fold, make them feel like they deserve a voice? They have a voice, but do they know that? Do they know how to share that voice? So that's kind of what we're going to be focusing on a lot, and just really trying to make sure that we have that involvement and that awareness.
Yeah, and I would say, my goals. I mean, what's the purpose of a political party, right? It's to elect people from your party. So, I would love to see all of our legislators reelected, and I also have a goal of course, expanding that map. You mentioned some candidates in Bismarck. I think we have a really great chance in Bismarck. I had the chance to go out to Bismarck last weekend and to Williston, and we're going to put up a fight in Williston. Mark Castle is going to be on the ballot, and Williston is home to some of the trying to figure a word that won't get me in trouble. But I'll just say that Nico Rios represents that region. And I think that North Dakota can do better. I think North Dakota deserves better. And I think the people of Williston recognize that, having someone who can claim tobacco blue while then getting pulled over and yelling at cops in a drunken rage, someone making anti-Semitic slurs, I think that North Dakota deserves better. And I think that Williston's a place to look at that. I also had a chance to go to Minot. And there's a lot of energy. Our fantastic House candidate, Trigby Hammer from last cycle, is from Minot, and Trigby brought so much hope all around the state. But what he also did was really build up that Minot group, and I think that again, if you think about who some of the who represents those areas, we have our legislature meets every other year for 80 days, and yet Representative Lori Van Winkle decided to take a little vacay right in the middle of that. And, I think the people of Minot deserve someone who can, who can do the job, who's prepared to do the job. And if she's not, the Dem-NPL is going to find someone to replace her. So I'm very excited about, and, those are just a couple of examples. I'm very excited about our opportunities up in Grand Forks. House Minority Leader Zach Ista is up for re-election, and I think he's going to bring across the line 2 other Dem-NPLers in his district. We had an unfortunate reversal of the Voting Rights Act, which is going to reenact the racist gerrymander in districts 9 and 15, which are currently held by our by Native American members of our Democratic Nonpartisan League. And so we're gonna really fight to make sure that tribal representation is maintained, even despite a federal ruling that they don't deserve to choose their own representation, and we don't believe that, and we're going to fight against it. So I think we have a lot of opportunities to pick up seats here in the next cycle, and I'm committed to getting that job done.
Adam, I want to touch on that really quick, because I think all too often, when you are scrolling and you do see feeds and news about gerrymandering, and you see these crazy cut up districts down, in Georgia, we went through redistricting during my tenure, and to see the way that the maps were made, the fact that Ruth Buffalo and Fargo got her Democratic stronghold flipped on Southwest from interstate down to Horace and Fargo. There was a little pop-up just to put her in that southern district. And then, of course, the new District 10, put some Democrats in office. It's really wide eye opening to see these things happen in front of us. There's a court decision making the District 9 and District 4A and B, and then that just got reversed. It's absolutely astonishing to see these things happen in real time. So this isn't just stuff that's happening in 6 states away. It's literally in our backyard. Adam,
if you think about the base, if you think about the base level gerrymander that we already live with, right? In the last election cycle, Dem-NPL candidates, statewide candidates, got somewhere between 120 and 140,000 votes, depending on the candidate. That's about a third of the electorate. And yet, because of the Republican gerrymander, we have about 8% of the legislative seats, right? So we get a third of the vote, 33%, and we get 8% of the legislative seats. Right? That is an extraordinary gerrymander, and it just once again goes to show, 2 things. One, Republicans don't even trust their own voters to reelect them. Right? Even in the so-called red state like North Dakota is alleged to be, even there Republicans don't trust their own voters to choose them, because they know they're wrong on every single issue. And the other thing I think it goes to prove is that things in North Dakota are not hopeless. And one of the things that I was saying, that I always say, is that the results of this last election cycle showed that no matter where you are, no matter what small town or farm, big city, anywhere you go across this state, there's Dem-NPLers. There's other people who agree with you. I don't care if your town has 23 people in it, 6 or 7 of them are probably Democrats, right? And get together and start organizing with them to make change, to make better change, to make good trouble for everyone across the state.
Absolutely. Go ahead.
Gerrymandering is even a thing. So I live over in District 16 in West Fargo, from 94 down to Cheyenne High School and Veterans out west. And if you look at the map of our district, there's a little cutout just into Fargo, just north of I-94. That's where 2 out of 3 of our legislators for our district live. And they lived there before the redistricting when they were in our district. But redistricting normally, if you were doing normal shapes like you should, they would have been cut out and pushed into a different district. But in order to keep their seats, they cut out that little bit so that they didn't have to worry about having to give up their seat and run in another district. And so to Adam's point, they drew themselves to keep their seats.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely wild, you guys. And, when I talk to kind of the above peer group, the Ryan Taylors, Joel Heidkamps, that whole group has seen it 10 years prior. So this keeps happening. And these districts keep pushing out good elected representatives. And the government that we have that people aren't happy with, our own Republican government, you guys, voted for a local Doge. They control the whole government and they don't trust themselves. So they're going to, instead of funding the auditor more, and we can have questionable thoughts on that. Me and Josh Gallion have definitely gone around a couple times, but they don't trust their auditor. They don't trust their elected officials. They don't trust the voters. They put a bill forward to clarify term limits, which would essentially give longer terms, which is contrary to the initiated measure. It's absolutely insane that the party of freedom, definitely air quotes intended, the party of freedom is trying to limit the amount of control their peers have, the amount of control their constituents have. Wild to me how this works.
Yeah, and I think it absolutely goes to show just how fragile this Republican supermajority is, right? I mean, you think about all the control they have over our government right now, and yet all the ways that they're continuing to try and get even more control. Voters passed term limits. The purpose of term limits is to say, we don't want you sitting in that office forever. And now the only debate on the Republican side is, should term limits start in 2047 or should term limits be gone just entirely, right? They just refuse to accept the will of the voters. Things like the Ethics Commission, which again was passed by voter initiative, and the Republicans have consistently gutted it. And even our Dem-NPL legislators stood up and said, the longest serving House Senate Republican, Ray Holmberg, was just convicted of serial sexual child abuse using government funds over a course of decades. Let's pass some bills that would protect young people in this state from predatory legislators. Let's bring some accountability to that. And the Republicans voted it down. They did not want that any constraints on their behavior. They're trying to increase the threshold for putting an initiated measure on the ballot from 50% to 60% of the voters districts across the state. And then, of course, the gerrymandering, right? Like again and again, even with this level of control, it's not enough for the Republicans. And I think that they know that their agenda is unpopular with the people of North Dakota, and that, I think the people of North Dakota and the people around the country are just waiting for a spark to bring down this whole corrupt facade, locally and nationally.
Oh, can I ask this question? Because I'll tell you, like I said, it's been a whirlwind of a couple of weeks. I was in the airport reading the Ray Holmberg report out loud to my wife. She said, "Stop it, Patrick. Stop it." The language in there is astonishing. And I don't think it stops there. So I'll ask, because it's hard for me to keep up with that all. Has anyone else been named in the last 2 weeks? I heard BCI is still going after people. Have you guys, have they released any more names? Do you know?
Not that I've heard specifically, but I know a lot of people that were photographed or associated highly with him over the years have been stepping down from various board positions or, selling off parts of their partnerships to just kind of take that step back from the public eye. And far be it from me to step over due process and say you're guilty by association, but I think it's something to be on guard about. If they're stepping back without an accusation, maybe they knew more than they're letting on, and they're hoping if they step back that eases that pressure. So while they may not have participated, did they know things? Should they have known things? Should there have been more red flags that they responded to? And I think that's something we all need to continue talking about.
And our Dem-NPL has been consistent on asking for two things. One, to continue this investigation. absolutely defies common sense that this could happen for the Senate Minority Leader who was in office for 40 years. It defies common sense, and it's not like he was keeping it secret, right? What we do know is that he was texting people, he was sending photographs to people. It defies logic and credibility that nobody else in the Republican Party knows. So the Dem-NPL has been consistent in demanding full investigation and a transparent and open investigation into that. That's number one. And then number two, as I alluded to, structural changes to the law to make sure that it can never happen again. And for both of those seemingly obvious, seemingly simple demands, Republicans have obstructed those every step of the way. We still don't really even have the answers to why, when Wayne Stenjum, the former Attorney General, passed away, why his aide went in the very next morning and deleted all the files off his computer, right? That was a clear case. I mean, if there's no clearer case of cover-ups than security footage catching you sneaking into an office to destroy government records that only happened to pop up 2 years later because it's very hard to actually delete things, right? I mean, we know that the cover-up we know that there has already been attempts to cover up, and those need to stop.
Adam, when I was at the Public Service Commission, we would get an email from the lawyer that would say, I need every email, every interaction you have that has such and such name on it for a public records request. And it was so detailed that she said, do not email me back because that'll create a duplicate record. It was printed out, we'll 3-hole punch it, and we'll scan it and send it. So, I mean, the people that are working at those agencies know exactly what they're doing when it comes to FOI requests. That happens all the time. I wouldn't say every day, but at least monthly. And the Attorney General's tasked with overseeing compliance with open record laws. So for her to do that is mind-blowingly corrupt in my mind. But I'll tell you guys what, I want to pivot. Is that okay?
Yeah.
I want to talk about how great we are instead of how bad they are. Because what do we stand for, right?
Mm-hmm.
Adam, Heather, I don't care who goes first, or if you want me to, why the Dem-NPL? So you guys stepped in. Heather, you stepped in and ran. Adam, you've been volunteering for 10 plus years with me. Why the Dem-NPL? What was your call to action? What's your number one? Why do you guys tip left or really swing left? Why us? What's your number one?
Well, I think, for me, it's America is the land of opportunity. And, when I was out in Williston, Mark Hassler again was saying, like, Williston is the American dream. You can come here with nothing. You can work hard. You can find a job. You can make money. And, maybe those jobs aren't the most glorious, the most glamorous, but, you can work hard and you can make a better life for yourself and for your kids. And, I think that, that really is what the Dem-NPL is for. And I think, we can look at that just across all aspects of, what our government does locally and nationally. I think about, how we're funding our K through 12, right? I mean, the teachers in this state need a raise. That's the bottom line. What did our Dem-NPL try and do? Our Dem-NPL tried to give school lunches to all school children. And, a lot of that we talked about that in terms of, reducing the stigma for low-income people to get access to food. We talked about that in the importance of hungry children, being able to do their best in school by getting meals. We talked about, that in terms of saving, working families money. But, one of the things that I always thought about it was like, it saves working parents 20 minutes every single morning. And I don't know what it's like for you, but to get up and get my daughter off to school, to have those 20 minutes back, that's something that we can give every family in this state. Our legislators worked really hard for that. And I'm reminded of that moment when a group of school children gathered outside the Capitol to help lobby for that. And they gave legislators free lunches as they walked in. And those Republican legislators took those free lunches, walked into the chamber and ate those lunches, and then voted down giving free lunches to school children. And our Dem-NPL caucus was united in favoring that bill. And that's just one example, right? I mean, we can also talk about OSHA. North Dakota is one of the most dangerous places to work. And protecting workers on the job, I mean, that's a priority for the Dem-NPL. It's absolutely not a priority for the Republican Party at any level. income inequality, right? The wealth that is coming out of the back end, the wealth that is coming out of North Dakota, that wealth needs to stay in North Dakota. And our Dem-NPL, our governor candidate, Merrill Pepcorn, as you well know, has been advocating for a higher oil extraction tax to keep the money from North Dakota that comes out of our industries in North Dakota to benefit North Dakotans, not to go to big corporate headquarters in Dallas or Houston or wherever they are. So I think that for me, it's about that American dream.
Yeah. So I kind of got involved with political stuff when I was 16 or so. I grew up pretty poor. I've had health issues off and on. My mom's had health issues off and on. So we grew up, maybe not always being able to make ends meet. And we benefited from the Great Plains Food Bank's backpack program. And when we finally got stable and my mom got a promotion, we then got pushed off of the reduced lunches program and we had to pay full price. And it was pretty much immediate that happened. So we went from, the reduced price for 3 kids in public school, 5 meals a week, to full price for 3 kids, 5 meals a week. And that didn't include the mornings where we missed the bus and had to drive and didn't have breakfast, or we only had dry toast on the bus and we wanted something more for breakfast, so then that adds that additional cost. And so it really kind of felt to me like, why isn't there like a transition period? How come when you make too much, you lose your benefits immediately? And so then I started asking more questions and learning a lot more. And then when I started at NDSU, I was originally going for education. And then I just decided I didn't really like it anymore. It wasn't for me. So I had a nervous breakdown, as a lot of college students do. And I said, what am I going to do with my life? Why am I even here? And I ended up deciding to study political science instead. So I have a bachelor's in poli-sci. And that was something that really opened my eyes to so many things. One thing, Adam, that you kind of touched on was with term limits, right? A lot of times, we hear, well, we don't need term limits because if people don't want that person in office anymore, they'll just stop voting for them. Well, poli-sci proves that that's not the case. Even if you don't like someone, if they're the incumbent, if they have your party's letter behind their name, if they have the backing of the party, if they have more money, statistically, men win more than women. I mean, there's so many things that might lead you to vote for somebody, even if you don't really like them. And that's specifically the case when it comes to incumbency versus challenger. So I think about that a lot in terms of, people just not being aware of how much underlying psychology that there is within politics. And for me, a lot of it too has to do with just equity. I think about how many times I've been dismissed as a woman and had people be like, well, God, you're just being so emotional. Like, it's not even that serious, or it's not that big of a deal. In one of my college classes for my bachelor's, this guy and I got into it in class. And then afterwards he came up and he's like, I would just encourage you not to make assumptions about people that you don't know, because I just feel like you're making a lot of judgments about me and you don't know me. And I was like, get away from me. Like, you don't know me. Don't go telling people that you don't know, like, how to live their lives, And so it's stuff like that where people feel like they get to have this power over you and they get to tell you those kinds of things. That really started me on kind of a journey of what feminism really means for me. And, you can't see it, but my necklace is actually a women's power symbol. Because to me, it's so important to empower everyone, but especially disenfranchised groups like people of color, women, people with disabilities, the LGBTQ community, all of which I fit into, except for being a person of color. I am disabled. I am part of the LGBTQ community. I am a woman. I'm 25, so I'm young. There's so many things where people could dismiss me, and I have to fight every day to not be dismissed and to make myself heard. And I think it's so important that we keep fighting for a day where you don't have to fist fight to be heard and people accept your word for your word because you've said it, instead of having to prove yourself and jump through all these extra hoops just so that my voice counts as much as my husband's. And when it came to deciding to run for office, it was really, if not me, then who? And if not now, then when? Because I want to be able to say, yeah, like somebody else could do it. Sure, somebody else could, but will they? Will there be someone to challenge Dave Clemens like Carrie and I both did? You know, will there be somebody to challenge Kelly Armstrong like Pat, you, and Meryl did? You know, will there be people to at least give people a choice? And I think that's a lot of what the Dem-NPL represents in many facets, is that choice. You know, and the right loves to say, oh, we're the party of freedom. No, you're not. You are the party of restrictions, limitations, putting your nose in other people's business, being so particular about things have to be exactly this way. Otherwise, everything will just fall apart. But really, we all thrive better when we get to make the decisions for ourselves, and we get to choose who we want to be, how we want to live, and how we want to experience the world.
Yeah, and I was thinking of an old Martin Luther King Jr. quote. He said, when he looks forward to time when we'll be judged on the content of our character, not the color of our skin. And I think that expanding that definition is something that we're still frankly fighting for. And you're right. The Republican Party claims to be. I think this all the time, right? Like all the things that the Republicans say they are, actually that's us, right? Like the party of personal responsibility. Has Donald Trump ever taken responsibility for anything? That man is president and still whining about, what Bruce Springsteen is saying or what Biden did, right? Just an absolute refusal to take responsibility for anything. And I also think, I just saw this quote by the Secretary of Commerce today. He said, he wants to open more factories in America so that you can work in that factory and your children and grandchildren can work in that same factory. And it's like, that is not the American dream of charting your own course and making your own way based on your skills and talents, right? I mean, that is the feudal old world system that everyone came to this country to avoid. So, who is really the party of economic prosperity, of individual opportunity, of entrepreneurialism? All of that is the Dem-NPL and the Democrats nationally.
Well, one thing what's been on my mind lately, my daughter's in this thing called Avid. Do you guys have Avid in Fargo? It's where teachers pick certain students to, instead of having a study hall, they learn about college, they learn about government. It's like an advanced opportunity. I'm sure that Avid means something, but I couldn't tell you what. But in this last couple of weeks, yeah, go ahead, Heather.
I was just going to say, my husband off screen just did this, which is yes for ASL. We do have that in West Fargo, apparently.
Okay.
He would like me to be known that we do have that in West Fargo. He said we used to, at least. He's not sure about now, but.
So Kaylee's in Avid, and one of her latest assignments was to put together a Bill of Rights and a country and, draft what would make the country great. And she has all these, she's even drawing passports. And we were talking about the Bill of Rights and what her Bill of Rights would be. And I'll be honest, did everything a 11-year-old would do. Let's Google the Bill of Rights. Let's read them together. And the one that really stuck out with me, and I'd been thinking about it before, but the unalienable rights, life, liberty, and the most important one is the pursuit of happiness. The Dem-NPL wants you to pursue your happiness. That's your dreams. That's your goals. That's whoever you want to love, whoever you want to worship. We support that. And I can't get that phrase out of my mind lately, the pursuit of happiness. I think that is an unalienable right. And I'm really glad that we have it protected in our Bill of Rights. And a little Kaylee girl did put it in hers too. So I'm really glad to be the party that supports that, because I think when we see these bills coming on in session, it's to remove your rights, to remove your freedoms, to remove your choices. And say that's unconstitutional, against the Bill of Rights. Well, anyway, with that, you guys, Adam, Heather, do you have any last words you want to say? We got to wrap this one up. You got any strong statements to end out to the viewership and podcast land?
I always like to close, any kind of opportunity like this to say that our party is an all volunteer party. I am the state party chair. I am a volunteer. Heather is the state party vice chair. She is a volunteer. Patrick Hart is the treasurer. He is a volunteer. Our party needs you. Our national DNC chair, Ken Martin, always says, no one can do everything, but everyone can do something. And our party is only as strong as the volunteers. So if you're out there and you're wondering what you can do, if you're wondering, you don't like what's happening in Bismarck, you don't like what's happening in DC, maybe you're scared, maybe something really precious to you is on this MAGA chopping block. Maybe you like the national parks, right? We are the party that is fighting for all of those things. We're the party that's fighting to protect the basic functions of this country. And just reach out to us. You can see my name there on the screen. Just put a dot in between adam.goldwyn and put @dem-npl.com on the end, and just send me an email and volunteer. Join our movement, join our fight. The future is ours if we go out there and get it. But we need you. We need everyone.
Absolutely. And I just want to add, my email is my first name last name @gmail.com. If not you, then who? And if not now, then when?
Well, what I'll end with is on our reelection. Of course, everyone's speeches went long, so I had to cut my 4 pages to 3 minutes. And what I focused on is a phrase I heard years ago. And that phrase was, what would you do if you knew that you cannot fail? And, I'm an achiever, you guys. Like, achievement is my motivation. I love it. And I think I first texted that to my wife, and she said, well, that's pretty arrogant, Patrick. But in the last years, it's really changed its meanings. What would you do if you knew that you could not fail? We cannot fail in what we're doing because the risks are too high. The lack of rights, the environmental impacts, the impacts on our poorest populations, our elderly, our school children. We have to succeed. So I'll leave you with this. What would you do if you knew that you cannot fail at this? Thanks for joining. I'll see you on the trail.
Thanks.